So I want to challenge you, start off each morning saying, God, fire me up. God, light a fire within me. Make me a worshiper and a warrior. God, would you light a fire as I read your word? Paul, in writing his son in the faith, Timothy, in his last will and testament, before he's killed in Rome, he writes in 2 Timothy 1:7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." This is the lion-hearted man. This is the man that's fully alive. This is the man who has released the lion within and is walking in the things of God. He's full of power, love, and a sound mind. In the palace of his heart, that holy place is growing more passionate in love with Jesus. And so this is the lion-hearted. When your heart has a palace of the new heart living within, and we're not walking in fear anymore. And that's huge, to break the power of fear through courage. The courage of power, love, and a sound mind. So demons guard this palace, and we have to every day make a decision that we're going to go after our lion-hearted potential. We're going to break through that. And so demons of lust and self-gratification, self-deception, and shame is often what we come into the kingdom of God with. We carry that from the old life. We carry that from our old experiences where we weren't working with God, we're not walking with God. So I want to talk about the blood qualities. I'm using that term blood because, as I mentioned in the earlier episode, this is the effort, this is the agony, this is the fight that's involved in following God, going after Him. And so we have this battle going on, and we fight. I'm going to say this, we fight fire with fire. We fight blood with blood. And so it's a war, man. And each one of you men are in a war. It's a spiritual war to take you out. And that's why Jesus said, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I came to give you life, and life that's more abundantly. And he put those two together as one. It's not one sentence, but it's like one thought, that there is an enemy who's going to steal, kill, and destroy everything that you have. Or you can go after life abundantly. So you can't get life abundant unless you're willing to take on the enemy. So that's the war that we're in. So what are the blood qualities? I think of three. I think of three qualities of a lion-hearted man. And this is not easy, you guys. It's actually really hard. And it takes effort every single day, but it's worth it. If you're going to be successful in anything, if you're going to be effective in anything in your life, it's going to take a real effort on your part, and willpower and God's power working together in partnership. So the first, I would say, is blood fire. This is a fire in your belly. It's a fire in your heart. Fired up because you love God. Fired up because you're loving God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So there's a fire. Well, fire burns things. And so that's why I like to use the word fire here, because fire comes from the heart, and God has this man's heart. And I think it begins with getting up in the morning and getting fire from God by spending time in His Word. I can't tell you how many pastors I know, how many leaders I know who do not even regularly spend time in seeking God through what we call around here PB&J, prayer, Bible, and journal. And they just go right into their study, or they go right into their Bible reading for maybe a talk they're going to give, or because they feel like they have to, but they're not really getting on fire. So I want to challenge you, start off each morning saying, God, fire me up. God, light a fire within me. Make me a worshiper and a warrior. God, would you light a fire as I read your word? And then work your way through the scriptures. I mean, read a chapter at a time, maybe more than one chapter, but maybe take a book. Like right now, I'm in a time of fasting and prayer as I'm giving this message. day 19 of 21-day fast, and I've been going through the book of Daniel. So I've been digging into Daniel for various reasons and why God led me to Daniel. But God will lead you. And so you have a book of the Bible, you work your way through it. Then you have your journal right there. And you write in your journal what God's speaking to you about. My journal during this time of fasting and prayer is full of my prayers that I know God's going to answer. I know God's going to answer each one of those prayers. Some of them are for the church, some are for the community, and some are for my family, different members of our family that I'm praying. And there's something about fasting and prayer that releases the fire of God in a whole nother intensity, a whole nother level. So you need bloody fire. You need blood fire in your life. You got to ask for it. You got to ask God to light that fire again in your life. As a matter of fact, I would argue that there's sometimes sin and strongholds in your life that need to be burned out. Not even just always decided, I'm not going to do that anymore. That should be a part of it, a decision. But you have to burn them out. And what I mean by that is that there's fires of passion that are not good. There's fires of lust that are not good. Well, how are you going to get rid of fire? Well, you hit fire with fire. So you take a stronger flame to put out the smaller flame. So like we do campfires around our house. We have a big fire pit in the back. And I have this propane tank with a hose that comes out of it. And then I light that thing with a spark, and it's a flamethrower. So this flamethrower comes, and I light the wood with that. Well, let's just imagine that there's just this little tiny little fire there. It's not going to ever heat up the place. It's not going to go anywhere. But I come in with the bigger fire. That bigger fire takes over that smaller fire. So in your life, you need a ferocious, flaming forest fire of your heart for God to overwhelm those sinful, fleshly, other fires in your life. So first, have a blood fire eruption in your life. Ask God for that. Number 2, blood purpose. This is a man with a clear vision, or a clear purpose for his life. This means you're using your job, your marriage, and your relationships toward a purpose. There's a purpose to your life. There's a purpose and a vision when you get up. The scriptures say, without a vision, the people perish. Or another way that's in the Hebrew can be translated as, without a vision, the people are unrestrained. So there's no guidance to our lives without a vision. So it's discovering your purpose. It's discovering your vision. I believe you need a job that's within that vision. You need a marriage within that vision. You need relationships within that vision. And so you have a purpose for this earth. You're put on this earth for a purpose, men. And one of the purposes is for you to be at a job, and in your destiny, the money that you're making is under a clear purpose. And I believe the greatest purpose is to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. That's what Jesus said. So we need meaning. We need meaning, and meaning guides our life, and meaning only comes from God. And so to have a blood purpose means that you're going after and asking God for what your vision is. And I've been an archer different times in my life, hunted elk and deer with a bow. And when you're practicing, you've got a clear focus on the target. So you pull back that bow, you got a peep that looks through to these small pins that are on the compound bow. You line that up and you fire your arrow. Well, if you don't know how to line up the pins with the peep for the target of your life, you're just random, man. You're just wandering around, not clear what you're doing. So I want to challenge you, have a blood purpose. Ask God to give you purpose and vision. Find the bullseye. What's the bullseye for your life? It's huge that you get that. And so you got to seek God for that, and God will show you, God will speak to you, but it starts with seeking first the kingdom of God. So it's prayer, Bible, journal. It's getting into God. It's getting into his word. It's being with other bloodstained allies, other men in your life that can also guide you, Christian men, to help you find your purpose. So blood fire, blood purpose, and then lastly, and this kind of ties it all up, is blood discipline. Harness your fire, harness your vision through the ability to have delayed gratification in your life. And what I mean is to be able to wait on the gratification of even your purpose and the fire that you have, because it's power and love in concert with each other through discipline. You're not supposed to be tame. You're supposed to be wild. You're supposed to be lion-hearted. Well, that has to be harnessed. That has to be controlled. And that harnessing, that control, is called discipline in your life. And you're not a gelding. So a gelding is a castrated, emasculated horse. God's called you to be a racehorse. And a racehorse is a disciplined horse that knows the vision, knows the fire within, and can run the race that's set before them. And so that's what you got to have. And if you're not a very disciplined person, you're not going to go anywhere in your life. So discipline comes through accountability. Best accountability is to yourself, where you have intrinsic motivation. But some of you have grown up in an environment where you never had to be disciplined. So you may need extrinsic motivation. In other words, having others speak into your life to help you be disciplined, to get up early, spend time with the Lord, to show up to work early, to do your job, to lead others. In Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews says, "Therefore we also, since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses," in other words, there's other people in our lives that we're accountable to, "let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us." So what that means is the discipline it takes, the fire it takes to move away from sin in our life, to not go where sin is, to renew our minds away from the sin that ensnares us and pulls us down. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. So God has set a race before you, men. You got to run that with endurance. It takes endurance. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. So we don't look at ourselves. We don't look in the mirror and say, how am I doing? As much as we look to Jesus and say, that's my model. That's my mentor. That's the one I'm going after. I'm going to keep my eyes on Jesus. So that's how we have blood discipline in our lives. So I challenge you, men, that this can be done by anyone. And I think that a lot of times people who failed the most actually end up having the most success because they decide to change. They want to quit, and they don't quit. They keep fighting back. So I challenge you, men, to become a fiery, disciplined, caring, loving person through controlling your emotions and going after that life, the life that you care about. It's the life that you really want, and it's the lion-hearted man.